Very similar to Distress ink from a perspective that I can go direct to surface if I want. If I want to use an ink blending tool. No, I know. Diane took them all. Like, if there's a blending tool that goes rogue, it would be Diane. That fixes it. I'll take one of Wendy's.
Hello.
Don't tell her. It's on camera, but just don't tell her. Yeah. So if I want to blend, I can pick this up and this is going to blend. Now I'm just showing you on black, but of course this is going to work over manila, over any other ink, and that ink is going to be dry already. Because even though it's pigment, it's formulated totally different. This is a felt pad. This is not that squishy foam that you're used to seeing with a pigment ink. Of course, this is going to, if you put it onto a surface, put it onto your craft sheet, put it onto paper, it's still going to react with water, the same way Distress does. So it's going to wick, even though it's white, it's going to intensify the same way because it's Distress. It's still Distress. Because right away Wendy's like, oh, I can use that instead of Glacier. I'm like, no, you'll hate it because it's not what you like about pigment ink. She likes the fact that it's glycerin and embossable and all that. This is not. This is if you like the properties of Distress ink, the blendability, the reactive nature, or even the stampability, this makes it really nice. I was showing that if you take even something detailed, I showed this one earlier, it's just a great example of how to stamp this. And now I can use a block instead of a package of crayons to stamp with earlier. You got good video content this time. When I go and ink that up and I go and stamp it, I'm able to get really nice detail when I'm stamping with that. So unlike with a lot of pigment inks where it fills in all of those gaps and openings, this is going to stamp just like a dye ink would. So everything that you love about Distress ink, that's what
There's Brianna from Ranger. She's responsible for all the Ranger stuff.
So some of the things that we have in the Distress line,
Periscope on Periscope,
especially with the designer side of it, of course, our Distress mixed media palette. And what we've done here is, as all of the designers in the Ranger line, we love archival ink. You know, if you see any of the things I stamp, I'm a fan of archival. I love the way it works. I love that it's oil-based and waterproof and all of that. But sometimes I'm looking for colors that really lend into my palette. So each of the designers within Ranger, Diane, Dina, Wendy, and myself, we were able to pick out 4 colors that we wanted to formulate in archival to create a mixed media palette. So it's a 4-cell pad. So it's 4 stamp pads in one case. It is really designed for more accents, ways that we would use it as accent stamps, and hopefully it's a segue for us to have archivals in all of our lines. Like, I wouldn't mind having a, you know, an individual archival pad, but baby steps. Baby steps. Yeah, you have to talk to Ranger and go, they're like, no, we don't need that. I'm like, okay, how about if you just give us 1, but really 4? So that's how that works. But the colors are really nice because you're able to create some really nice effects. You know that I like to stamp and layer, and Di likes to stamp. We like things that are waterproof. So that's really the benefit of the mixed media palette, is that we have our colors. So I have Hickory Smoke, Vintage Photo, Ground Espresso, and Black Soot in my palette, which is cool. All right, so let's get into, well, 2 other things, and then I'll get into new. I'm not totally teasing you on the crayons, I promise. So, but I'll forget, because it's not like the new car. It's just kind of the cool accessories you put on the car. Some other new things we did are mini spray stains. We had such great success with the Distress Minis, and a lot of people have found the convenience, the portability of having stuff mini to take to classes. Also, the price point to have something that's a little less where you can own more of the colors. And anyone that's using a spray ink knows that there's a lot of ink in those bottles, even if you are a heavy sprayer. So the spray stains, we went down to a small little 1-ounce bottle. So besides it has a cute factor. There's small little sprays, but it does give you, it's the exact same sprayer, so it's the same sprayer that we use in the larger bottles. It's just smaller. So this one has some texture paste through a stencil. And I can take this, I want to blend some of my colors, so I'm just going to give it a little spray of water. Whenever you spray inks or spray stain, if you want to create a quick blend first, I find it easier to give it just a hit of water, which would be great. And then I can just go in and add some colors. Now, when I add colors, one of the things I'm always in the habit of doing is wiping off the nozzle. That little bit of ink on there, all of the inks contain a resin, and if you don't get in the habit, you could risk clogging that sprayer. You know, kind of get those sidewinders that we all really hate and despise. So I'm just going in, really layering. I want to add a little bit more on there because that paste is going to absorb the color. Then, of course, dry this. Just just dry that texture paste in there. Use the sprayer just a little bit more to create some drips. The Distress sprayer, what's nice about it, again, we can mist with a quick squeeze or slowly squeeze and create those drops. That's what's nice about having that trigger sprayer. Move that sludge out of the way. It's different when you demo than crafting at home. Crafting at home, I'd be like, I'm gonna use that on something. Take a piece of paper, something, do that ink, you know what I mean? But here I'm just like, get it out of my way. Not part of the show. Yeah. So cool. It's really good. No, we've actually changed to a black heat tool because our white, like when we finally got to reorder the heat tool, I'm like, we get it in other than white. We're like, why? I'm like, it looks so dirty all the time. It does. I mean, we're messy people. We're using ink and paint, and although ink and paint is still going to go on it, it just doesn't look as, and I'm all about grungy, don't get me wrong. I always think grungy. But grungy and dirty, two different things. I'm like, the heat tool always looks so gross. So they're all coming in, they're just a black heat tool. I know, it's a nice thing. It looks so much nicer sitting on the table. Because my thing just, yeah, it looks horrible. So yeah, so they're all coming in and they're all sold as a black heat tool now. I know, weird, but good. And then lastly are the flip top paints. Now we introduced the flip top caps last year because I truly believe that with any crafter, our styles evolve, what we use products for evolve, and I was a huge lover of a paint dabber, and that's when I was using foam stamps, that's when I was painting pieces of chipboard, you know, edging cards, that's what I was using paint for. But as we kind of become more and more evolved in mixed media, we're trying to use our mediums different ways. We're using our hands now, and baby wipes, and brayers, and, you know, blending tools to pounce paint. And I found that I really wasn't using the dabber as much as I did. I just wanted paint. So I was taking my dabbers and like squishing it on the cut sheet. I'm like, this top is really a pain. Can we just do a flip top? So what we did is we have replacement flip tops. Now the bottle is the same exact size, paint for paint. What's cool about the flip top is it's got that little notch that I can push up. It's going to lock up there, so it's not going to be flimsy around. This is an angled tip. So that was really important. Most craft paints are flush right on the top. So you get that ring of leaky paint. This, when I tip it over, if I want paint, I squeeze the bottle to dispense paint. If I let go, it stops. When I go to close this, that plug goes in that hole, and that's going to make this airtight. So when I throw it in the bag, it won't leak, it won't do anything. So we have these caps that you can replace your dabbers if you want. But because I would really like to transition all of our paints to just sell it this way and sell replacement dabbers for those that love the dabbers, they could add a dabber to maybe their white paint or metallic. I want to go the other way because I think this cuts the cost down for like $1, $1.50 in retail. It's a huge price. Same amount of paint, but just that cap. I'm like, you know what? I think most crafters would rather save their money, and if they want to put a dabber on something, let them do the opposite. So we're testing 12 of them, sold as a flip top, to see if people like it, and then if they do, hopefully we'll be able to transition it to all of that.
I thought you'd done all 61.
What's that?
I thought you'd done all 61 colours in one go.
Yeah?
No, that's what I thought you'd done. Only 12.
No, we've only done 12. They won't do them all yet because they just don't. They still think I'm crazy.
Oh, you are. Well, you kind of are.
I'm crazy, but I believe that really our
Thank
styles
God for
evolve,
crazy.
and I go so if I can save $1, first of all, at retail, I'm buying paint, and I only want to put a dabber on a couple colors. That's, to me, that is a better creative decision, I think, as a crafter. So that's a paint. I'm not going to do anything with it other than this. Oh, it's okay.
Flip top for the win. Yay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's get this thing.
Are the tops sold separately?
They are. So the tops are sold separately in a pack, but you can also, as a store or a crafter, buy them in bulk. So you can buy like a bag of 50.
Yes.
So if you already have the caps and the paints, you can replace them out if you want. But here we go. We're going to talk about these.
Okay, here we go.
New
Distress
to the
crayons.
Distress world are Distress Crayons. Now, the reason I wanted to do Distress Crayons is, as much as I love all of the different medias that I have, I'm always looking for different ways and different techniques to apply them. And what's been really interesting since these have come out, people go, are they like this? Are they like this product? Are they like this product? Similarities, but no, they're going to be something different, of course. So what these are referred to as water reactive pigments because that's kind of what they are. They are not an oil-based pigment. It is not a wax stick. It is a water reactive pigment. Right now, they are only sold in 18 up to 61 colors. Why? because they're not sure if people will like them or not. So they're sold just in these 3 kits. They are not available open stock yet, but we'll see how things go. I did design a bright set. So this has your picked raspberry and spiced marmalade and peacock feathers and twisted citron, those bright colors. Of course, I did a vintage palette of antique linen, vintage photo, all of that, and then just kind of your standard palette, seedless preserves, chipped sapphire. So you can still really have a good play with these. What's cool about these is when we work with them on surfaces, they are designed mostly for porous surfaces, but I'll show you some things you can do on metals and things like that. When we work, it is a crayon. It's got a single end. This end you simply turn to get more medium up, so the entire stick is filled with media. When we work with this, it goes on just like a crayon. It's got kind of that skippy, waxy, but it's very smooth. It almost is like drawing with lipstick. It's that smooth. But what's unique about this is that although they are water reactive, and I'll look for, is my water brush in here? No? Sorry. What happens when you pack, I just throw everything in the drawer. Because they're water reactive, I can go in with a water brush or a paintbrush and I can blend out some of this media, but here's what's interesting when you haven't used these before. If you're used to coloring with markers, we know that the less ink we get on the surface, the better. It's easier to blend, right? You get too much marker on a piece of paper, you're blending. This, when you have a small amount, it doesn't blend nearly as much as if I have a significant amount of media on the paper. This is going to blend out much easier. So it doesn't leave you any lines. So completely opposite of what we're doing. So when we're coloring areas, we're able to go in with the crayon instead of just like doing that. You can literally go into the edge of something and now take that media and really pull in that color, blend it out. I can color direct. I can also still apply it to any surface and use that as a palette and pick up color from that. So that has a nice similar feature when it comes to working with the markers. Now, these do some really kind of, I don't know, cool things in the fact that if I'm gonna do some vintage element, I can smudge it as well. So let's bring this in. So these are the new collage mediums, and the collage mediums are really my answer to a collage glue that I love. We recently discontinued Glue and Seal, which is a very wet glue that we had. It was a nice medium, but it was a little too wet, so I found when I was trying to collage, my paper often looked like lasagna. So collage medium is available, excuse my reach, it's available in 3 different styles. You can buy matte, vintage, and what's referred to as crazing. Okay, now these medias, are sold in a 4-ounce jar. They're also sold in a set of minis. So if your customer is not sure which one to start with, they can buy one set and get a sampler of all 3 finishes in a small jar. I like it because if I'm going to go somewhere with my media, I can just refill from my big jar into my small jars and I can throw all of them in my bag and take with me. What's cool about this, it's a water-based, waterproof media, so I can use it as a sealer if I want, but it is designed for collage. It means it's designed to collage papers and fabrics. It is not designed as assemblage, meaning it's not designed to take and glue a button to something or a metal embellishment. That's still multimedia, totally different animal. This is strictly for collage because I wanted something, and I refer to this in my class, it has a drying time of now. Okay? So just remember that when we're using it, and I'll show you. A drying time of now. So if I'm collaging and I put some on there, it's going to dry. As soon as I put my paper down, I'm ready to take my next layer. So some people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna like that. I'm a hovercrafter, I wanna hover a little bit, move, decide where I wanna put things. Yeah, this will help you kind of overcome that. But the reason I told you that is because we can do some cool things with that and the crayons. So let me quickly put some of that on there. Let me find my brushes. Now, the brushes, I also designed a brush for the collage mediums. There are 3 different brushes, 3 different sizes, large, medium, and small. Now these brushes, very soft brush, but has a lot of spring to it. And I'll pass this brush around as long as it makes my only set. Okay? But I want you to really kind of flick around the top of your hand to feel it. It's like a springboard, but it's very, very soft. And I'll show you from this one what you can do with it. Now, the large and the medium, the large of course fits in here, large and medium fit in both jars, and then the small one only fits in the small of the big jar. This doesn't fit in here. This is designed that I can take my collage medium, dip my brush in there, and just spread this on. What's unique about this particular brush is it's designed angled so it fits right in your hand like that. That's how we're going to hold a brush. It gives me total control when I'm applying a medium. Dina wants to paint with them already. She's like, I want to paint with those. But what's unique is usually I found when I was using a paintbrush with glue and I put it down, I would have so much glue on a surface that when I took a paintbrush, it would just kind of leave a channel like that of glue. This brush can actually squeegee it right off. So that's why I wanted that kind of bristle, that if I felt that I had too much medium, I could scrape that off, but still have the ability to apply it if I wanted to. So that's what's really cool about this medium. You do not need this much, by the way. The first brush stroke was good. I'm demoing the brush at this point. Everyone's like, that's a lot of medium to glue something down. One little pass was all you needed. Kind of the challenge of when you're demo. So I'm going to take that down. Whenever I glue something down, I usually try to go in with a paper towel, a baby wipe, something like that, and press it down. That's going to get out all of the air bubbles, and that's also going to make sure that it's dry, set, which means I can add another layer right over the top, which means I can also put another layer of collage medium, and I don't have to worry about this layer sliding when I do so. That's really what I wanted. So when I say a drying time of now, that's really about when you're layering, when you're building. You can add. Once you're done, how long does this take to dry? Probably about 2 to 3 minutes. If you're in a hurry, all of the mediums are completely heat stable, so you can dry them with a heat tool, including the crazing. So let's talk about the difference in the finish. Now, one tip I gave to my class, which who knew it was such a great new tip, but when you're done using any sort of wet media, wrap it in a baby wipe and you don't have to clean your brush for hours. I haven't cleaned my brush yet today. So when you're working on a project, don't always put your brush in water, because you have a wet brush. This, I can just unwrap it and use it. So any kind of baby wipe, as long as it's wet or damp, really. You don't have to soak it. It took her.
Hey, Allie. Periscope. It's my second ever Periscope. With Allie Edwards. No, I totally rock. Allie Edwards in my Periscope. I'm a rock star. Okay, back to the demo.
You don't. So the mediums are in 3 different finishes. The matte is just going to be a completely matte finish, totally smooth. Then I did one that is vintage. So for people that really are unfamiliar or uncomfortable with inking, they're like, I don't know how much ink to put on something, everything looks like I drug it through the mud. This will allow you to take all of your paper, just go right over it, because it is a tinted medium. So it immediately creates that vintage effect just from the glue itself. Just brushing over it, that's what you get. And obviously if it's heavier, you get that instant drop shadow, and where it's lighter, so you can even control like how mottled this becomes. So that really took the guesswork out of people that love a little vintage but really aren't kind of crossed over to that true distress look. And then one of my favorites is called crazing. And what crazing is, and I'll try to hold this under the light and I'll pass this around, it's these little fine crackles that you see in vintage porcelain. Whenever you see like a ceramic or porcelain that has this crackle finish, but you touch it and it's smooth, that's crazing. So unlike crackle paint, like the rock candy that we sell, that you can feel it and you can see it and it's textured, this is completely smooth, yet it crazes. And the crazing is these very, very tiny, so no matter how thick you apply this, you will always get tiny little crazing. You're never gonna get big cracks. So it's not crackle glue, okay? It's crazing. Another thing that you'll see different, and we have a great sample around the corner on the column, is whenever you use rock candy over an image, the cracks are very large, so it distorts the picture underneath it. So if you use it over paper, you really can't see the detail in the paper. This you can do directly over photographs, ephemera, anything, and it never distorts the imagery. Because of this, this has a texture to it. I can go in with my crayons and I can highlight the crazing. So you can see right here, there's really, it looks like nothing. This looks like dry glue. You're like, I don't see anything there. But when I go in with the crayons, I can smudge this in to highlight all of that crazing. So you can see all those, I'll kind of show that around. Can you see those little crazings in there? See? See all those little tiny cracks, and completely smooth to the touch. It's pretty cool. Now, that's one of the features that I love about these crayons, is when I'm layering ephemera, I can draw around my ephemera, take my finger, and I have that ability to smudge right along that to create that highlight. If I want to create a deeper shadow, I could take a darker color of media, go right over that. Just go in with my crayons. And because it has kind of that slick, almost waxy kind of thing, I have that ability to really smudge that out. It has some open time, and I want to talk about that too. If you want to highlight, picket fence, awesome. Because picket fence is going to allow me to just sketch over that, and it's going to give me almost an oxidized look to my surface. Notice I'm not even smudging it much. I'm just drawing around that, and that's going to give me that cool white highlight that you get when you see like vintage oxidized things. But it will go over every color because these are pigment, which means I can put white over brown and still see white. I can put a color over a color and still see color. So let's show them on surfaces. Different surfaces. I'm going to dry this top layer. The top is already dry, but the outside I can see where it built up. It's still a little wet. So let's dry this up. Because they work totally different on gesso or a medium surface, different than paper, but I'm going to show you on both because it doesn't mean you always have to seal something. All right. If I'm going to go into manila, I'll also talk about craft. Oh, that's got a lot of heavy texture. Because these are pigment, it's going to allow me to add color on any surface. I can use craft paper, manila, watercolor. I don't have to just stick with white cardstock. So if I go on craft, I still have the ability to color. I still have the ability to smudge. I can go over texture paste with it. It's going to color right over that texture paste, and it's just going to give me immediate color that's going to be dry. So that's really different than an oil pastel that when you put this on, it's going to stay slick and it's going to continue to smudge. These don't do that. It's going to give me some blend time. So let's talk about blend or open time. If I'm watercoloring with it, let's take a bolder color, as you can see. There's a little Cebus preserves. And I want to blend this out. Of course, I can blend this out on manila. So all those little particles, the more water that gets in, that's all just pigment. So you can dilute all of that, okay? Just the heavier you go, the more you're able to blend. So the fact that I can watercolor on a manila tag is pretty cool because usually with a marker, once you put that on, it's done. It's not gonna blend. This is going to allow you to blend. If you have a surface that's going to have some sort of media over it, gesso or collage medium, the open time is huge, okay? It's going to give you incredible play time. So I can go in with some crayon, put that on. I can smudge that around. I can create that drop shadow if I want, work that around. I can blend color. So if I want to take one color, maybe I want to make it a little vintage. I'm never going to contaminate the sticks. I can blend those together to create kind of that, almost like a little bit of a patina color. So I can smudge them, but I can also get rid of them. So if I wanted to remove them, I could use them as is. Let's color a larger area. Let's color a lot of this. Carefully apply your crayons. No, Ooh, I love the texture from applying, what, 20 layers of collage medium to this, but I kind of like what I got. All right, so I can put those colors down. Let's take a layering stencil. Let's see, what to do. Let's do something just obnoxious and bold. You can take this, you can just go in with a baby wipe. And just with a baby wipe, it's going to remove it completely. So the more you add over the top, I can wipe this, or I can take all of this off, okay? Because we have a treated surface, big difference, right? So it's going to be dry, it's not going to rub off, it's not going to come off, but if I take something water, it is a water reactive pigment, which means anytime you add water to it, you can get it to react. Kind of, sort of. Let me throw a curveball your way. Because this is a treated surface, it's going to always react with water, okay? Unless I applied Distress Microglaze, which would seal it, but it's always going to react with water. I could seal this with collage medium if I wanted to make sure that color didn't move, but I don't have to always seal it because once it's dry, it's not going to keep rubbing off or smudging, only if you wet it. But let's say we did something that was already a background. For example, this tag, because it's such a lovely background. Don't you agree? Some of my finest work. It's some of my finest. I love that. Just going to make sure that the paper was dry because I did use my water brush on there. I always believe that when you add something exciting and new, you never want to leave behind what everybody already has and loves. So of course, if I'm going to do something new with Distress, it needs to always go back home to what people have. And that means that these are completely compatible with your inks, your stains, and your spray stains. So all of your inks are still going to work, and here's where it becomes very interesting. I know, see already. What? Okay. I'm going to take my blending tool. All of my minis have a blending foam tucked underneath, so if you haven't seen that little trick, it's a great idea to give each of your ink pads its own little blending foam, so you could have one handle, tuck it in there. I can use my ink. I'm just going to go with the brown kind of shock value because I want to. And I'm just going to put some vintage photo over that. I'll peel this off. I'm going to tuck this underneath. Shocking, right? But I didn't even have to dry with a heat tool. I just wanted to make sure my paper was dry, as long as it was dry. Yep. So I'm just going to go with some other colors. So what's interesting is that the medium itself will maintain its color integrity, right? But it's also going to work as a resist. So if I add water, I can get that color to come right back to the surface. So unlike acrylic paint, where when you use it as a resist, it is an opaque resist. You've seen that trick where I paint with the paint dabber or go through the stencil with the blending tool. That color is opaque. This gave me all the property, even where I watercolored it out. So if I created an entire watercolor with my crayons, I could then go over it with my distress inks or stains, and then when I missed it, my watercolor will come right to the top. It also allows you to stamp over the top of it. That's another great feature about these, even because people go, oh, they're like wax. Nope, you can stamp with full detail. So the card that's on that sample board under the distress crayons, the butterfly card, those are all crayons scribbled. Sprayed with water, and then I stamped right with black archival over the top. So when you're like, oh, how do they work if you want to stamp on them? Perfectly. So you don't have to worry because, oh, it seems waxy when I stamp, I'm not going to be able to get the detail. All of your ink will transfer right over the top of it. I know. Okay, let me show you on metal.
This is it. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, this is the drawer that everybody wants to just take home and put in. Yeah. They're like, I want drawer number 5. Yeah. Okay. So if you have anything metal,
Can I hand you my phone here? I need to hand you my phone for a minute. Somebody needs to speak to you desperately.
oh, unless it's the president.
Almost.
Oh,
Just say hello, Linda.
hello, Linda. Hello.
Hold on, Tim's having to talk to someone. We don't know who, but
Oh, Tim just said hi to you.
Hello. All right. So if you wanted to add some color into a surface, usually you've seen the trick again where we do acrylic paint. Acrylic paint's a great surface, but when you put acrylic paint in there, you put it on, you kind of wait for it to dry, you try to wipe it off. Maybe it's too wet, maybe it's too dry because we want to get color in the recessed areas. And we can create a really cool effect with these because we can control, oh, absolutely, move all this junk out of the way. I am absolutely soft. So we're going to create how much color we want to put in here. And I'll even hold this up. And this is dry immediately. So this is going to go right into metal. So any of your metal embellishments, elements that you want to highlight, alter, you can do that right with the crayons. It's really cool. So if you have buttons, brads, anything that you want to add a color to, it's dry, it's done. It's done. Yeah, it's done. You'd have to absolutely soak it in water to get it to react. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. So using it as a resist, using it to blend, and again, I can go over this and blend some other colors and mediums with this. So I'm just going to go back and add some more colors just because I want to. But I really encourage you, if you want to see some amazing art done with these crayons, because of course I'm just demoing their properties, this year's Designer Challenge, which is right here in the booth. What we do for the Designer Challenge, if you're not familiar with it, is every CHA, we highlight a product. Maybe it's a brand new product, or maybe it's just a product that people haven't used in a while. And we call out on designers. We just pick some designers at random. It's not always the same list. And we ask if they want to be part of the challenge. We don't tell them what it is, what it's about, nothing. They have to say yes or no then. So this year, we asked if they want to be part of the challenge, and what we gave them was one of Dana's new media boards, which is kind of, it's a book board that's got a linen over the top, a canvas finish, and we sent them 1 pack of Distress crayons. That's it. We didn't tell them about it, didn't tell them what they did, what their properties were, how they reacted, what you can use them on, what you couldn't use them on. So they opened the box, they're like, a piece of board. How are you? A piece of board and crayons. And that's the cool thing about the challenge, because they have to then bring their project to us the day before the show opens, and we see what they create. And I think that's the most inspiring, because nobody really knew what the other person was doing, what you could do, what you couldn't do. So fine artists like Dina that drew, she drew with them, drew a stabilo over there, did painting. Debbie Tulak actually sketched with them. We had scrapbookers like Amy Tan that used them with, wet them and use a can of air to splatter them to create a background. Jennifer McGuire, who's like a bag of Skittles, just colored those and die cut all those little hearts and stars to create a mosaic. We have so many different styles of art there, all using the same media, and that's what's really cool. So you can go over there and check it out and see, like, wow, this is watercolored, this is smeared, this is sketched, and it's all done with crayons. And I think that that's really one of the cool things. If you haven't been to a CHA before, always check out the Designer Challenge, because you never know what inspiration you're going to check out. So those are crayons. Any questions on Distress Crayons? They're pretty neat. This is just a great sample if you're looking.
When will they be available?
They're shipping right after the show. They're in stock. Yeah, I know. Shocking, isn't it? Yes. When you work with them, like, to me, this is just a great sample to bring to the show, because I was able to show how they look great like a crayon, and when they're a crayon, they're still a crayon. They're not going to smudge when you touch them. Yes, if you wet them, they are water-reactive pigments. Okay? So they'll always be water-reactive, but I love the fact that I could color or draw, and I don't have to worry like an oil pastel that every time I touch it, it's going to smear. So when it dries, it is dry. But if I wet it, I can get it to react like a watercolor, or if I rub my finger over it while it's wet, I can get it to smudge. So those are the properties that I wanted, because, you know, one of the people are like, oh, can you stamp with them? You cannot stamp with these. So I know you can stamp with a gelato or a oil. These were not designed to stamp with. I have things I stamp with, you know. I wanted these because the features I wanted to be able to easily highlight ephemera. I wanted to easily blend color with my hands, but also layer over the top of it. I love that smudgeability, and I wanted something that would almost work as a resist ink that paint could not achieve, because every time I did cool resist effects, I'm like, it's cool, but it was always like a white paint, you know, or blue paint. I want it to look like ink, and this does that, because even where you blend it in watercolor, it's going to work as a resist. So those are the awesome features when it comes to these crayons. All right, let's move on to other things. Oh, I'm totally contaminating the sets. Well, there's all sorts of stuff everywhere. All right, let's see. What do you guys want to see next? We could do some alcohol ink. We could do some stamping. We could do some stencils.
Okay, I'm going to end this video. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
So there's 3, 5, 6, 7, 8,
40
9, 10,
minutes
11,
long.
12. There's 13 right there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bottles. So, I mean, depending on how many installments are
$11.99.
No, I feel like
Can we walk you guys over to the designer samples?
It doesn't come with a re-inker, but we sell a re-inker separate for this. And this
All right, designer samples. Dina Wakely, who I call Sprinkles.
I know, that's so cool. And each one is on
Amy
a
Tan.
little
Allison is Amy.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Jazzy Holden.
Very.
Very, very cool. Yeah, re-inkers are so separated. First one, Saha.
Hi, Peaches. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good.
I don't know how much the spinner is. Maybe 40-ish.
Oh, you're talking to somebody. Sorry.
And of course, Julie.
Here's the Designer's Challenge. Tim was just talking about my last video. Done with the
Oh, 49.
crayons.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Stephanie Ackerman.
How are you?
Jennifer McGuire, who Tim calls Skittles.
Today.
I love Jennifer McGuire. Tammy Zudero. And Paula Cheney. P. That's our Paula. And Minnie Plum.
Can I grab?
All right, And here we have Wendy Becky. You guys, everyone knows Wendy. It's going really good. The show seems super busy to me. Sherry Carroll. Simon Says. We love Simon. Michelle Christensen. Paula and Tim right again. And Tim's. Alright, and here we have Debbie. Debbie's worked at Ranger forever. I don't know, like 20 years I think. She's awesome. She works with Tim in the art department. Who doesn't know Christina Warner? Christina's awesome. We have Crazy Cats because of Christina. Anita Houston. Thank you, Christina. Bobby Smith. And who is last but not least? Lady Di. Well, at least I'll call her Lady Di right now. Alright, you guys. Those are the designer challenge samples. So I hope you had a fun time. I'm gonna see you later. Maybe sometime we can get Tim to do a let me see. I'm gonna turn this around. Oh, hey, it's me. Anyway, I'm gonna see, maybe we can do another demo later with Tim on the crayons, and maybe you can hear a little better because I know it's really noisy here. Sorry about that. So if I can get maybe a little more quiet demo, then maybe I can actually answer some of your questions too. Hello. I didn't want to interrupt and be rude and stop him while he was doing his demo, so sorry if I didn't answer your questions, but if we can do it later, then you can ask him stuff and I can ask him and he can answer your questions for you, because God knows I really probably don't know the answers anyway. So anyway, it is close to 3 o'clock for me and I am ready for coffee, so I'm going to say see you later and I'm going to go get some coffee. Alright, thanks for watching. Guys, have a great day. See you guys later. Bye.